Welcome to episode 1 of the Roadmap to Release, your step-by-step guide through the world of writing and publishing from the very first thought to your first book launch. Let's get started. In today's episode, we're going to dive deep into where to begin when you decide that you want to write a book and become a published author. Because there are tons of questions I know you have, and so we're going to start at the very beginning with where to even begin. There is probably a dozen questions that you have right now. If you've been thinking about writing a book for most of your life or even just decided to do it this year, it can feel like a lot when you're diving into it, especially when you go online and it just is a plethora of information, and the writing community is so open-hearted and will help you and answer all of your questions. But the more you learn, the more it seems there is still to learn. So I am going to help you with that. Starting today with episode 1 of the author tips series. I guess that's just what I'm going to call it. I don't know yet. Uh, when you see the thumbnail and you see this video, you will know what I decided to call it. Okay. But we're going to go through from the very beginning to when you release your book and what to do after that. So I'm going to cover every single thing that I know about writing and publishing. I am an indie author, which is an independent author, or aka self-published author. However, I have multiple friends who are either hybrid or traditionally published. So I will be answering some questions along the traditionally published and hybrid published route, but when we get to those areas, I will tell you what I know and where you can go to get the rest of the information. Okay? Um, but I have learned a ton since I started. I've been writing since I was 10, I think. But I started writing my first official book in 2018, published my first book in 2020, and now I have multiple books out, multiple short stories out. I have a flash fiction piece in an anthology. I'm currently working on a short story for another anthology submission. I have 3 pen names. One is children's fiction, one is nonfiction, and one is adult fiction. So let's get into it. So to start, one of the biggest questions you need to answer is, are you going to be an indie, aka self-published author, or are you going to be a traditionally published author, or are you going to be hybrid? Here's the main differences, and a lot of the stuff that people don't realize. When you are traditionally published, which means you write a book, you query it, you get a literary agent, you get a publishing house that picks up your book, and they publish your book and release it and all of the things. They're not going to do all of the marketing for you. And you sort of sign over your rights to the book. I don't know the legalities of it necessarily, but I do know that they don't do all of the marketing for you. Unless you're a big name author like Stephen King or James Patterson or Nora Roberts or some big name author, they're not going to put in a bunch of money into marketing your book. You're going to have a little bit of a marketing team, and they're going to market your book to help sell copies and like put in the investment because they chose to publish your book. But you're going to have to do a lot of it yourself. You're still going to have social media platforms. Now, granted, I say that, and yes, there are authors out there that do not do social media at all, and they are still successful. I don't know how, but it is possible. But in this day and age, my advice is to get into social media. You need that presence on social media to help market your books. Another big thing with traditionally publishing, they decide the cover artist, the cover art. They get the final say so of the title. They get the final say so of the edits. You, as far as I know, you don't get to choose your editor. You don't get to choose your formatter. They have the final say on everything. And if they want you to change a certain character or take a certain character out or whatever, as far as I know, it's in your contract that you have to do that because they signed a contract with you. They decided to. Sorry, this huge snow and ice storm is messing up internet. That's why it's taken me so long to even film the second video because my internet's been going wonky. So if there's glitches, I am so sorry, but it's Mother Nature. It's not me. Okay, but as far as I know, it once you sign that contract with them, they have the final say in all of it. So that means you don't have nearly as much control. Also, people automatically think that if you get a book published through a publishing house, you're rich. You're going to get that huge lump sum check and you're going to be rich and you're be a famous author. No, that's not how it works. One, it doesn't guarantee you that you're going to be a famous author. It doesn't guarantee you that you're going to be a New York Times best-selling author. And it doesn't guarantee you that you're going to be rich. You have a large lump sum payment, your royalty payment, but from what I understand, and I don't know what the average uh, upfront payment is now, so I'm just going to say $10,000. That could be very low, it could be very high. I don't know. But I'm just going to use that number for reference. But from what I understand, talking to my traditionally published friends and hybrid published friends, that when you get that lump sum payment, it is saying that you're going to get this $10,000 check and they're going to print X number of book copies of your book. So $10,000 check, they're going to print 500,000 copies of your book. Again, I am literally just throwing numbers out there. These could be very, very high, very, very low. I don't know. But it's essentially you don't get another check until you have sold all of those copies that they printed. And then you can get another check, or maybe then you start getting regular, like monthly checks or something. I don't know about that part, but I know that you don't get paid again until you've sold all of those copies that they printed. Well, as far as I've been told by people I know who are traditionally published or are trying to be. Um, so that's the traditionally published realm. Indie publish or self publish authors, we have control of all of it. You get to choose the title, the cover art, the cover artist, the size of your book, the formatting, the formatter, the editor, the character artist, the swag, the merch, the marketing, where it's sold, how it's sold, and everything in between. With independent authors, we decide all of it. We're in control of all of it, which is awesome. No one else has the rights to our books except for us. We decide. However, that also means that no one else is doing all of that work for you. You got to put together all of those teams. You got to hire the formatter. You got to hire the editor. You got to hire the book cover artist. You got to hire the character artist. You have to put together a team of alpha readers. You have to put together a team of beta readers, street team, ARC readers, an email list for your newsletter. You have to run all of the social media and learn how to market your book. All of the things. And marketing is a lot more than just showing a picture of your book and saying, this is my book, this is what it's about, and this is how you can go buy it, because people don't give a shit when you post something like that. Instead, you have to do so many other things. And it can be very frustrating. I don't know any authors, and I know a lot of authors, I don't know any authors who actually enjoy the marketing process. Every writer and author friend I have, the marketing part is the part that they hate the most. Like, send us to the editing cave for an entire year. We will eat that up if we need to, but if that means we don't have to market, great, because so many of us are just like, we have to market now. We have to tell people about our books now and figure out how to make it work so people actually see and read and buy. But why do we have to? So that's one big question that you need to decide. Are you going to be an independent author, or are you going to be a traditionally published author? Or are you going to be hybrid? Are you going to have some books that you traditionally publish and some books that you self-publish? That's a thing too. I have friends that do both. I have friends that do one and then friends that do the other. It's up to you. You get to decide, okay? That's the first question you need to answer for yourself. The second one is, are you going to write fiction or nonfiction? Because honestly, if you want to write both, you need two different pen names. And I would suggest a pen name. Just add that as an extra thing here. A pen name. I would suggest uh, creating a pen name simply because if and when you get very successful, you want to be able to protect yourself and your family and the people you care about from the crazy people out there. Not saying that readers are crazy stalkers, but there are weird people in every single industry. We all know that. So protect yourself and get you a pen name, okay? Um, uh, just my professional opinion, get you a pen name. And I've seen some highly successful authors very recently said on a panel that they wish that they had gotten a pen name because there are people that know where their daughters work and stuff now, and they've had some really creepy moments, and they wish they had started out with a pen name to protect their family. So think about that. But also, from my professional opinion and the experience I've had from publishing and marketing, you are going to be fighting tooth and nail trying to sell books, if you are marketing both fiction and nonfiction books on the same account, the same social media account, the same website, if you have them together, you're going to be fighting really hard for a very long time to get anybody interested. Simply because there are still a lot of people out there who read nonfiction who refuse to read fiction. And there are still a lot of people out there who read fiction who refuse to read nonfiction. And I'm not saying the ones who are just like, no, this is my flavor, this is what I like to stick with. That's fine. I'm talking about the ones who won't try anything. The ones who are just like, no, this is for me. I don't like that. No. Those are the ones that I'm talking about. The ones that are just stuck in their ways and they don't want to even be open minded to consider another option. And so you need to decide if you're going to write fiction or nonfiction. And also, I am going to put this here from my own experience as well, that I would suggest sticking with one for now. If you want to write both, choose one now. Choose to either write fiction or to write nonfiction right now. And then later down the road, when you have made this a successful career where you have sustainable, consistent income from this career, then you can add the other to it. Take it from someone who has 3 pen names. I write adult fiction, nonfiction, and children's fiction. And I tried to throw it all in there year 2, and that makes it so much more difficult. It is going to be so much easier for you to build your career on one, and when it is sustainable and consistent, add the next one, okay? And you can build that while this one is bringing in sustainable, consistent income, okay? So decide, are you going to write fiction or nonfiction? And then what age range are you going to write for? Now, a lot of people don't really understand this. Yes, as an independent author, we get to break the rules. We get to bend the rules because that's what we do. However, there are certain things that I will stand by us keeping a hard and fast rule, and I will explain why. One, children's books are for kids up to 9 years old. Middle grade books are for kids between 9 and 12 years old. Young adult is for kids 13 to 18 years old. New adult is for people who are 18 to 22 years old. So new adult, think of that as college age range. So usually like 18 to 22-ish, like that 4-year college age period. And adult is anything over 22. Now, this refers to your book's target audience age and or your main characters' ages. So you gotta think of it like Stephen King's It. Trying to use a reference here that almost everybody will understand. Yes, part of it is about kids in middle school age, middle grade kids, but it is telling their story of when they experienced this as kids and when they experienced this as adults. And because it's telling the story of both, it is targeted for adults. Now, that's not saying the kids can't watch it or read it, because we all did, but it has some adult elements. Now, this is the big thing. There are certain guidelines for each age range of books. For children's, again, 0 to 9 years old, uh, no cussing, no sexual stuff, no adult uh, elements or graphic elements, uh, anything like that. For middle grade, 9 to 12-year-olds, you can deal with more darker elements, because at that age, like, they could be dealing with losing family members, or heartbreak, or losing friendships, or a scary thing happening in their town or something. But there should be no sex, no experimentation with drugs or alcohol, and very few cuss words. Very few. Think of it as PG-13. You only get one F bomb. Okay? Young adult, 13 to 18. There could be dark elements. There could be uh, sexual experimentation. However, it should be closed door. I do not use the term clean or spicy. Spicy is fine, but I do not use the word clean, because that is saying that sex is bad. Sex is not bad. It should not have ever been taboo. It's not clean. You either have spicy, you have closed door, or you have open door. With YA, which is young adult, 13 to 18-year-olds, it should be closed door. You can have kissing and all of that, but when it actually comes to the sex, it should not be on the page. It should be behind closed doors. There could be experimentation with drugs and alcohol. There can be cussing. Because you gotta think, at that age, you are experimenting. You are in relationships, taking it to the next level. You are going to parties, and you're having experiences with drugs and alcohol and cussing and sex and bad things happening in life or around you. But please remember, there should not be any detailed sex on the page. These are children. No one needs to see that, because they are children. And if you're saying, okay, well, this is targeted for teenagers, okay, yeah, this is targeted for teenagers. But should the teenagers also be reading detailed stuff on the page? This is teenagers. They're going to experiment, but it should be closed doored. It should not be some 50 Shades of Grey, dark romance shit. That's not for kids. That's for adults, okay? And the people out there who put that in YA is just making the sexualization of children more palpable in our society, and that needs to be stopped. It needs to be burned out. Okay? I don't care if you don't like that. If you don't like that, go to a different channel. Okay? And then new adult is 18 to 22. Again, this is college age people. So they're adults, they're legal to do all of the things. They're just in college age. Uh, New adult, if the kids don't, the people don't have to be in college in your book, they just have to be that age. And like I said, These age brackets are for either your main character's ages or the target audience ages of your book. So this book is written for college age people, or this book has college age people as the main characters of your book, or it could be both, either or both. Okay. With new adult, they're adults. Pretty much everything goes. The only difference between new adult and adult is new adult is college age, 18 to 22 years old, and adult is 22 and older with everything goes. Right? So you need to decide what age bracket you're going to be writing for. Are you going to be writing for a certain age reader? Are you going to be writing certain age characters? And you need to make sure you stay in those guidelines of, okay, if this is for this age kids, or it's got this age kids as the main characters, there's certain things you can't do. As an independent author, you're going to be able to break the rules, but like not be broken. And if you're in if you're going to be traditionally published, you're going to have to stick to the guidelines for that. Also, you're going to have to figure out genre. What genre do you want to write? You can write multiple genres, but the more genres you write, the more difficult it's going to be to market. I write multiple genres. In my adult fiction, I write adult crime and psychological thrillers, adult fantasy. It's dark fantasy and grim dark fantasy, and adult horror. Just every subgenre of horror I can before I leave this room. And what I do with my marketing is I split it up so that I I don't split it up. I group those genres together. So my short stories are horror. I market them together. My fantasy, I market that together. My thrillers, I market that together. That way, it's not me saying, hey, check out all of my books. It's me saying, hey, you like thrillers? Check this out. Hey, you like fantasy? Check this out. And I just group it up. And that helps a lot, but it is more difficult when you have multiple genres. But that's one of those things where I'm like, that's just what my heart wants, so that's what I'm going to do. It's going to be difficult anyways because it's marketing, so choose your heart. And there are so many different genres. So decide what genres you want to but this is also one of those things where genre and subgenre, you can choose that when you're writing your book, when you're actually writing the book, because maybe you don't know what genre it's going to be. You just have a story in your head and you want to write it, and then when you write it, you realize it's fantasy with some romance, or it's sci-fi, or it's horror, or slasher horror, or whatever. Um, I will say I'll probably cover this at another time too. But when it comes to genre and subgenre, when you're marketing, it is very important that the genre is the main basis of your plot. The subgenre is the subplot of your book. So, romance, fantasy, it is more about the romance and less about the fantasy. Fantasy romance is more about the fantasy and less about the romance. That goes with every genre and subgenre. The first one is the one that is the main plot of the book. The second one is the subplot of the book, the one that is a less important, less involved in your book. And like I said, it goes for every genre and subgenre. Um, I'm trying to think of another instance, but fantasy, science fiction. It's more about the fantasy, less about the science fiction. Sci-fi, fantasy, more about the sci-fi, less about the fantasy. Um, and tropes is a completely different thing. When you were talking about genre and subgenre, you do not include tropes. And honestly, I don't like to include tropes in marketing except for like once in a great while. Unless you're in romance. If you're in romance, that's kind of the thing that everybody's into right now. I don't like tropes specifically for myself because tropes give away a lot of the details of the book. The only time I actually enjoy tropes is when it's romance, when I'm like, okay, because with romance, I am very specific and picky about what type of I will even read. So I go towards certain tropes and subgenres, and that's it. But I don't believe in tropes for pretty much anything else because it throws spoilers at you. But that's a whole different video. Okay, so we talked about indie or trad or hybrid. I'm just updating this so that I know when I'm editing the video. Fiction or nonfiction, pen names, age brackets, genre, subgenre. Okay, the next thing I want to cover is the guidelines. Now, the guidelines for the length of the book is a lot more flexible when you're independently published than if you are uh, traditionally published, because traditional publishing houses require it to be a certain length, uh, in a certain length bracket for that certain genre, or they won't accept it at all. They may have become more lax about that recently. I don't know. I'm not in that sphere. But as far as genres and everything, there is some guidelines, but I will explain. So, the length of your novel. One, a thriller is expected to be between 70 and 90,000 words. Science fiction and fantasy between 90 and 120,000. Romance between 50 and 100,000. Historical fiction around 100,000. Nonfiction um, doesn't have any definitive word count, but there are categories that within nonfiction that are like memoirs are typically 80 to 90,000 words. That if you're not going going the traditional publishing route and you're going to be self-published, I don't think that that really matters at all. Those numbers, I don't really think that matters at all. If your readers like you and like your books, they don't care how long it is. I will say that there are guidelines to stick to when it comes to novel, novella, novelette, and short story, and flash fiction. Oh, and there's another thing on here too. uh, Young adult for traditionally published books are typically between 40 and 80,000 words. Sci-fi YA, of course, is a little bit longer because it's sci-fi. and middle grade is between 20 and 50,000. And of course, if it's children's, it's a lot less than that because it's mainly like picture books with words. Um, so, an anthology or short story collections typically around 40 to 50,000 words. Now, all of that is pretty much within the trad pub universe. It doesn't really matter outside of that universe. When it comes to independently publishing or self publishing your book, it doesn't really matter. What does matter is outside of the genres and just the size of the book, so you know what to call it. So, a novel is 50,000 words or more. A novella is between 10,000 and 40,000 words. A novelette is between 7,500 and 17,000 words. So it's somewhere like it sort of blurs together, but a novelette is typically a little bit shorter than novellas. Short stories are anywhere between 5,000 to 10,000 words. Uh, but typically it's anything that's over 1,000 words. So 1,000 to 10,000 words. Uh, or if you want to like keep it under the novelette bracket, it would be 1,000 to 1,000 to 7,000 words. And then there's flash fiction, which is 500 words or less. Um, so those aren't genre specific, those are just the size of a book. You have novel, you have novelette, you have short story, you have um, flash flash fiction. And that just tells you how long your book needs to be in order to be a novel. Or if it's going to be a little book, it's going to be a novella or a novelette. Um, or a short story or a flash fiction piece. Um, those brackets, I think those are the most important. But like I said, the genre length brackets are mainly only important if you're going through the traditional publishing route. Um, okay, so we covered a bunch of stuff in this video. I'm sorry if I'm going very fast. I'm trying not to make you sit here for an hour to go through all of this. But you can always rewatch it and take notes and stuff too. And you can pause it and keep going too. Uh, the only other thing I'm going to talk about in this video, just very quick, is supplies. And this is the fun part. So, what supplies do you need to start writing a book? One, decide whether you're going to write it by hand or on a computer. I actually know someone who writes it by hand first and then she puts it all into the computer afterwards. My hands cannot deal with that. My hands are already fighting the start of arthritis. So, I can't do that, but that's up to you. Um, if you're going to write it by hand, get you a bunch of journals or a binder with a bunch of loose leaf paper and pens and pencils. If you're going to write it on a computer, or you're going to write it on a desktop or a laptop, I would suggest a laptop because then you can move it. Because you're going to want to be able to move to different spaces when you're writing. Because sometimes you're writing but you're not really flowing and it feels like you're really fighting for it, even 10 words, and then you just move to a different location and you sit down there to write and then it just flows. So sometimes that's all it takes. So I would suggest a laptop. um Also, get you a notebook or a journal or a binder or something to take notes in, because you're going to want to take notes of characters and everything else. Plenty of pens, highlighters, pencils, uh, post-its. I have post-its all over the damn place. Uh, I use USB flash drives to save an extra backup copy of my books, just in case we have a power outage or the lightning strikes in the middle of the night and it fries my computer or anything like that. Um, so that's what I get. Um, Also, talking about software supplies. Are you going to write it on Microsoft Word? Are you going to write it on OneDrive through Microsoft 365 so it's online? Or Google Docs? Um, Anything works. There's a software or site that's called Scrivener that a lot of authors use, because you can really, if you don't write linearly, I feel like I said that very wrong. But if you don't write chapter one, chapter two, chapter three consecutively, if you're writing depending on what scene you feel like writing that day, if you're going to write scene from chapter 10 and then scene from chapter 15, and all of that, Scrivener is really good for writing all of that and keeping it organized so that you can put it in order when you need to later. Um, there's all kinds of different software systems like that. You just have to decide what works for you. Um, Also, you are going to have to decide whether you are a planner or a pantser or a planter, and we're going to cover all of that in the next video. I am actually going to show you, well, actually, in the next video, I am going to show you how to brainstorm a story idea. And then I believe in video 3, we're going to talk about outlining your your book, how you're going to outline it and plan it. And uh, because I am a planner, the only stories I have ever just fully pantsed and just pants is the term for when you just fly by the seat of your pants. You're just writing and you're just hoping it continues to flow. It's by short stories, and even that has become more of a outline um, than pantsing now. But we will cover pantsing, plotting, and the middle ground where you do a bit of both, which is called a plantser. We will cover all of that in the third episode. But in the next episode, we are going to talk about how to brainstorm your story ideas and actually build a story from your ideas. I'm going to show you some of my favorite tips and techniques that I use. One of my most important tools that I use when it comes to creating story ideas for myself and stories that I fall in love with before I ever even open the blank page to start writing it. So we're going to cover all of that. The next couple of videos, it's going to be fun. We're going to do it on a big marker board. It's going to be fun. So thank you so much for watching this. If you stay to the end, please leave a pencil emoji in the comments. And if you will, comment where you are in your writer author journey. Are you just starting out? Did you learn anything new from this video? And please, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I will make sure that I cover them as we go along. It may not be until we get to a certain video, but I will make sure I cover all of your questions, okay? And if you have any questions about hybrid or traditionally publishing, you leave those too. And if I don't know the answer, I will talk to my friends and get the answer for you, okay? Thank you so much for coming. I really hope that this helped, and I'm excited for this new series. So for now, I'll see you next time. Bye.